Hello everybody, Cindy here with Monarch Mom DIY. Today I'm bringing you a video that has been requested, the landscape photo book. So the one on the left is the one that I showed in a previous live, and let's just do a quick flip through so we can remind you what it looks like. So we've got a flap to the right with a side pocket, a pocket on the back, then the next page has the pocket on the front, a side pocket, and a flap. So every other page will flap to the right or to the left, and then 2 pocket pages together. And here's our back. So there's a total of 4 page systems. On this hinge, it lays pretty much completely flat. So today I'm going to put together one using this Sunflower Market paper. So first we'll put together our album cover. And what we need for this is we need 2 pieces of medium weight chipboard that measure 8 inches by 6 inches. I do get mine on Amazon, and I will link that in the description. The spine piece will be 2 1/4 inches by 6 inches. Then what we need to put our book together to wrap it is 2 pieces of cardstock that measure 10 1/2 inches by 8 inches, and we're going to put 1 strip of score tape. You can use either 3/8 inch, which is what I'm using here, or 1/2 inch. That's close enough. And we're going to put it on the edge of 1 piece of cardstock, burnish it down really well, and then once we peel that backing off, we're going to overlap the other piece of cardstock onto that 3/8 or 1/2 inch of score tape. This is going to give us one long piece of cardstock about 20 inches wide and the 8 inches tall to wrap our chipboard. Next, with the scoreboard, we're going to score at 1 inch on the left all along the bottom. So you'll do half of it here, then flip your cardstock over so you can do the other half. And then we'll also score it at 1 inch on the right hand side. This gives us great guidelines to be able to line our chipboard pieces up and make them be straight as possible. So next, using some 1 inch score tape, and again, look in the description box. I will put links to all of these supplies that I use to make them easy for you to find. I'm going to go around the edges of each of the chipboard pieces, sometimes in the middle, and then I will fill in the middle also with my tape runner. This is just so that the cardstock will attach all the way to the chipboard and we won't have any air bubbles. So as you can see here, I peeled off the backing of my score tape, and now I'm filling in those spaces with some tape runner. Now this first cover piece, I'm lining it up on the left-hand score line and the bottom. And then there you can see I also have a 1 inch piece of cardstock up at the top. So this is gonna give us an equal amount of cardstock all the way around that we will then wrap around our chipboard to create the cover of our book. And you can see there we have a little bit of a gap on either side of the spine. You're going to want that so that you can wrap your cardstock without it ripping. Once I have all 3 of my pieces down, I'm just burnishing it really well on the back. Then I'm going to score that top line, going back around all of our score lines, just kind of folding them over, starting to train them to go around our chipboard. Now taking my thinner score tape again, you can see I'm going to go pretty much all the way around the outer perimeter of our cardstock there. You can leave a little bit off on the corners because we're going to end up trimming those anyway. Then going around the outside edges of our chipboard, and you can see I'm going in those little spaces. Want to make sure the score tape gets down in there as well. Again, you want to make sure you burnish really well on your score tape. That just makes sure the adhesive gets into the cardstock or the chipboard. And we'll do that going down into those little spaces. And then we will start peeling once we miter our corners. So I'm going not all the way to the chipboard, but pretty close. And this is just going to take away some of the extra bulk when we wrap our cardstock around our chipboard. So before I peel any of the backings off, I'm going to again continue training that paper to fold over the sides of our chipboard to give us a nice folded cover. Now you can see I'm going to peel off a little bit of the tape at a time, and then I'm folding and pressing to get our two long sides wrapped on our chipboard. Then we'll do our two short sides, and if there's any excess hanging over there, I just kind of press them in. This will give us nice tight corners on those two short sides as well. Now, once we have it wrapped all the way, we're going to gently press into those two spaces again and kind of work our cardstock so that we can have our cover fold on the two spaces there. Be sure you don't use a sharp part of your bone folder because you don't want to rip or crack that cardstock there on the spine. All right, next let's make our stacked hinge spine. This is one of the easiest spines I've learned how to make. You're going to need 3 pieces that are 5 5/8 inches tall, one that's 3 inches wide, one that's 2.5 inches wide, and one that is 1.5 inches wide. And on each of these pieces, you're just going to score at 1/2 inch on both of the long sides here. Do that for all 3 of your pieces. So I think you can see here how all 3 of these pieces stacked together are going to make 4 little hinges sticking up that we're going to attach our pages to. So here I'm just folding on those score lines, and that's going to be our inside 2 pieces. So pages 2 and 3, and then this hinge will be on the outside of those. So this will be pages 1 and 4, and then all together there you see 4 little pieces sticking up. Now this widest piece, these side pieces that we scored are actually going to flap to the back, and this is how we're going to attach this whole hinge to the spine of our book. So now taking some art glitter glue, I'm turning over my skinniest piece and I'm just applying glue to that back side. We've got our 2 side pieces sticking up. You don't want glue on those. And then lining it up on my scoreboard here, you can see I'm going to place it down right in the middle of those score lines. And you'll see that it matches up perfectly so that I have 1/2 inch spaces or gutters between each of my little flaps sticking up. Then we're going to attach that piece to the middle of our widest piece. Like I said, this is going to be the piece that attaches our hinge system to our book. It sounds and looks more complicated than it is, but once you put it together, you'll see. And I just use the markings on my scoreboard to make sure I'm getting it as centered as possible. Just make sure you burnish pretty well, press down all of your glue. The nice thing about using glue for this is you have a little bit of time to move things around if needed. So now we have our spine flipped over to the back, and we're going to flip to the back those outer pieces that we scored, because we're going to attach a piece of score tape. And like I said, this is how we're going to attach our hinge system to our spine once we get our album cover all ready to go. Before we can attach our spine, we need to cover the inside with 2 pieces of cardstock, 5 1/4 inches by 9 inches. We're going to just put adhesive all over these, and then we're also going to put some score tape on the spine pieces there. And then we're just going to lay these pieces right next to each other on the middle of the spine, just to give a nice covered decorative blank space to be able to decorate for this album. So I'm just going to use 2 pieces of the 1-inch score tape and run those down the spine. This is just going to hold everything really well so that, like I said, we don't have any air bubbles. We want our book to be nice and secure. Now that we have the inside of our book cover covered up with cardstock, we're going to burnish that down, and then we're going to come in again with a blunt side of our bone folder, crease that spine space again, since now we have another layer of cardstock there, and just make sure that we're able to fold our book cover open and closed. And now we're going to attach our spine. So we've already put that score tape on the back. We're going to kind of eyeball where it needs to go, peel off just one side, and we're going to lay that down, centering it on top of that spine piece. Once we get it where we think we want it, we'll go ahead and burnish it down with our bone folder on the outside and on the inside. Then remove that second piece of score tape and do the same thing on the left so that our spine is completely attached with our hinge. And there you can see where our 4 pages will attach. Now let's make our book pages. So each of our book pages, we're going to make 4 of them. They consist of 3 pieces. The main pocket, the back pocket, and the little flap. So we're going to make 2 pages where they flap to the right and 2 pages where they flap to the left. It'll make sense here in a second. Start with 4 pieces of cardstock that are 7 1/2 inches by 12, 4 pieces that are 7 1/2 inches by 5 3/4, and 4 pieces that are 8 1/2 by 3 3/4. Now with our biggest piece, you're going to score at 1/2 inch and at 6 1/4 inches. These are going to be the base page that we're then going to add the flap and the small pocket to. So once you've made those 2 score lines, go ahead and fold them on those lines. And basically we're going to make a tube, okay? We're going to fold it like this so that it makes that tube. We're going to put a little bit of glue on that 1/2 inch flap. And then we're going to glue down the other half of our page to that flap. Burnish it really well so that glue gets into the fibers of the paper. Now, this cardstock was a little bit bigger than 12 inches, so I did have to trim that tiny little extra that was hanging over. So I'm going to call this the tube, okay? We're going to make 4 of these, and they are, like I said, going to be the base of our pages. You can see it's this part here that we attach the flap to. Okay, next we're going to make a flap, and that's the 7 1/2 by, I think it's 5 3/4. You're just going to score it at 1/2 inch on that left side, burnish down your score line, and then before we can tuck it into the open side of our pocket, we're just going to miter the corners just a little bit so that it's easier to get in and out to be able to glue that down. Okay, so we're just going to put a little bit of glue again on this 1/2 inch flap, and we're going to tuck it inside our pocket and glue it. Now it's going to be glued to the part of the tube that is on the top there facing us, but there will still be a space behind this flap that we can use this as a side pocket. You'll see in a little bit. Okay, so there's our tube and our flap. Then flipping it over to the back, we're going to attach our small pocket. So this piece, you're going to score it 1/2 inch on the left, along the bottom, and on the right-hand side. Once you get those score lines, go ahead and fold them over, burnish them down really well. And then once you get all 3 of them burnished down, we are going to miter the corners, meaning just cutting off the angle there on both of those bottom corners. Again, this is just going to alleviate some of the bulk, just like when we wrapped our cover. You can see we're going to glue down all 3 of those little flaps to the back side here of our tube page and create this little pocket. So here we've completed our first page. Where my left hand is the hinge. You can see the flap, the side pocket, and then this pocket on the back. So we're going to make 2 pages that flip out like that to the right and 2 that flip to the left. I think I'll show you that here in just a second. So this is that first page that flips to the right. The next one's going to have the pocket on the front and then the flap on the back. Again, right and then left. So 4 pages, 2 flaps on the right, 2 flaps on the left. Here, I'm just going to show you again how I'm scoring and folding the rest of the pieces I need to make 3 more pages for our book. Okay, so here's my 4 pages. I want to make sure I have them right flap, then back pocket, then front pocket, left flap, right flap, back pocket, front pocket, left flap. This is so that I glue my pockets on the correct side and top and bottom, making sure they're all correct before I fold and glue on my pockets. So now bringing back in my pages, there's my first one, and then this next one is going to have the pocket on the front. So you notice when I did the flip through of the completed album that the 2 pages that had the small pockets on them were facing each other. So that's what we're doing here. So this is page number 2, has the pocket. Then when you turn it, the flap is to the left. Page 3, The flap is to the right, and then our small pocket again is going to be on the back of our page. So we're gluing that down here. And I just line up the bottom, and then once the bottom's lined up, glue down the sides. Okay, right flap, pocket on back. Last page is going to have the pocket on the front, and then our flap will go in the opposite direction. So now we're going to decorate our album cover. Again, if you remember, it measures 8 inches by 6 inches. And so when I am layering paper, I just go down 1/4 inch on each dimension. So this white cardstock is 7 3/4 by 5 3/4. Then the black is 7.5 by 5.5. That gives you that nice border. Then our decorative paper is 7 1/4 by 5 1/4. You can do as many layers as you want. I did 3 layers on the front and back cover, and also on the 2 inside covers. So here, coming to our front cover, I'm going to start with the decorative paper, and I'm just using a tape runner to go around the edges and a little bit in the middle. I'm going to attach this now to the next slightly larger piece of black cardstock. Then, using my tape runner again, we're going to go around the outer edges, a little bit on the inside, and attach that to our slightly larger white cardstock. Of course, use whatever colors are going to go with your book that you're making. Now, when I'm attaching it to the actual book, I'm going to do the runner around the outside edges, and then I'm going to fill in with my art glitter glue. This is just going to make it a little more permanent. It's not going to come off, but of course, burnish all your pieces that you're attaching. Now I'm going to do this very same thing for my back cover. Again, all of this decorative paper came from Sunflower Market. I'll put a link to this paper pack. I love using paper collections because they all coordinate together and you don't have to really give too much thought to it. I did cut all my pieces before I started laying anything down just to make sure I had enough. And here again, I'm going to use glue to attach my back cover decoration to the back cover of my album. Once I have that in place, I'm going to do the same thing for my inside covers. So here's what we have so far, front and back cover and the 2 insides. Now we're going to decorate our pages. Again, just measure the area of the page, then go down by 1/4 inch each time for the paper that you're going to layer. I like to do cardstock and then decorative cardstock so that it makes the pages more sturdy, and it's just going to add to the overall effect of your book. You can see here on the pocket pages, I am doing separate cardstock and paper for the front of the pocket and then what is behind the pocket. Also using the glue to do the final attaching to our pages. So I'm putting all the decorative paper on the pages before we put the pages onto the hinges. The other thing we're going to make for those side pockets are some insert cards. So I'm going to make 4 cards that are 7 1/4 inches by 5.5. Those are the black. And then the decorative paper is 7 inches by 5¼ inches. So for each piece of black cardstock, we're going to need 2 decorative pieces. We're just going to add those to either side of our black card. Again, adding stability, adding some more decorative paper. These are just some solid color cardstock that came with this Sunflower Market collection. So once we have all those, you can see I'm also rounding the corners. I'm going to attach the decorative pieces that are a little bit smaller to either side of our black cards. And now we're finally ready to add our pages to our book on our hinge. So coming to our flaps on our hinge, we're going to put some of that score tape on either side of the hinge. So each hinge is going to get score tape on the front of it and on the back. This is how our page is going to attach to the hinge. So we're just running that score tape along, then we're going to burnish it really well, but we're just going to peel off the 2 pieces on either side of our back hinge. I'm going to start with the back page, and we're going to open up the tube where we want this to attach. And this is probably the trickiest part, is getting this on here and getting it straight where you want it. You want it almost all the way down to the score line. You want to make sure there's a little tiny bit of a gap so the page can still flap back and forth like this. And using your cover as a guide, you want to make sure you have it straight. The page is on there straight. Now we're going to do page number 3 in the same way. And we can just go slowly with it, get it on there nice and straight and where you want it before you actually like press down the score tape onto the page or the page onto the score tape. Take your time, open up that tube, get it lined up straight on the page that's already down, page number 4, get it on that hinge, and then press it down really well. Then I'm going to go do page number 1 and finish up with page number 2. Now that we have all 4 of our pages in, we can add our big cards to those side pockets that we made. I like that they stick out just a tiny little bit, adding a little bit more color to the decorations of the books. So we're going to get those 4 side cards in, and then there are also in these paper collections little cut apart cards that you can glue down to your pages, or you can add them into the little pockets as you'll see me do here in a second. And here's our flip through of our book. Of course, you can also add stickers to these books as they come with the collections as well. But here you can see our flap outs, our little pockets, our insert cards that are in those side pockets. And I just love making these books. I think these books with maybe a little tape runner would make such a fun gift for someone. Maybe even add a pen so they can do some journaling. And I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial from the top view. I know a lot of you requested it, so please let me know in the comments what you think if you want to see more photo book tutorials like this in the future. Take care.